Mama told me
We
when
are.
I was young, we were all born superstars. Oh,
Can someone check?
roll my hair and put my lipstick on in the glass of her boudoir. Nothing wrong with loving who you are, she said, 'cause he made you perfect, baby. So go ahead and girl, and you'll go far. Listen to me when I say, I'll be all in my ways. Gotta make no mistake, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Don't hide yourself in regret. Just love yourself and you'll say, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way, baby. I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Right track, baby, I was born this way. Give yourself prudence and love your friends. So we can rejoice your truth. In the religion of the insecure, I must be myself, respect my youth. A different lover is not a sin. Believe capital H-I-E-N. I love my life, I love this record, and mi amore vuole fare. Something in Italian. I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Don't hide yourself and regret. Just love yourself and you'll say, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way, baby. I was born this way. Baby, I was born this way. Ooh, there ain't no other way, baby. I was born this way. Right track, baby. I was born this way. No matter gay, straight or bi, lesbian, transgender life, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to survive. No matter black, white, or beige, Shalom or Orient, I'm on the right track, baby. I was born to be brave. Oh, there ain't no other way, baby. I was born this way, baby. I was born this way. Oh, there ain't no other way, baby. I was born this way. Right track, baby. I was born this way. I was born this way. Hey, I was born this way. Hey, on the right track, baby. I was born this way. I was born this way. Hey, I was born this way. Hey, on the right track, baby. I was born this way.
This is a hell of a way to start. Who do we have following that? We're going to shift gears entirely, as we're going to do a number of times throughout the night. And our next speaker is Michael Altman. You know him, you love him, you love his dog. He's going to give a quick talk on the basic overview of sports psychology. And we'll get his slides up here in a second. Ready to go?
Let's do it. So, disclaimer, the last time I gave this talk, I think it was like an hour, and I had slides or so I'm going to see what I can do in 5 minutes. But, and also, I didn't know I was second, so I thought I had a little more time. There goes another 30 seconds. So, going up here, obviously, the way you think about yourself. Apparently, I need to talk louder. The way you think about yourself and your training has a huge impact on your performance. I first got exposed to sports psychology when I was training at the Olympic Training Center in San Diego. 2003, I went in to talk to a sports psychologist, and I was pissed at my coaches at the time, and walked in and said, I'm not going to make this Olympic team. It's not going to happen. I'm just here trying to do the best I can. And I thought for sure he was going to say, got the wrong attitude. You just, you know, you got to sharpen up. You got to bring. And he said, that's exactly how you should be thinking. So I said, huh, okay, well that's a little interesting. So you flip forward. So later on, as I started to learn more about sports psychology, and I wanted to understand why I was having these peaks and valleys in my performance. Started to realize what he was trying to say. And I'm a Bruin, went there for grad school. And I realized John Wooden really had it right too. Success is a peace of mind, which is a direct result of knowing that you made the effort to become the best that you're capable of becoming. I thought I knew it by heart, but apparently I didn't. But point is, he's not talking about winning. He's not talking about beating your opponent. If there's anything you take away from this, I'd like you to realize, I'd like you to take away the fact that there are two ways to approach your competition, your training. There's extrinsic reasons and there's intrinsic reasons. Extrinsic is about the result. It's about beating your opponent. It's about being better than somebody else. Intrinsic is doing it for the pure love of the sport. It's focusing more on what you actually get out of doing it than the actual reward. Flip forward. I like this analogy because I think it shows that you can do everything right and you can still lose. That's not your fault. I call it the poker analogy. I didn't come up with it, so I'm not trying to take credit for it. But even if you have the best hand in the world playing Texas Hold'em, you're still going to lose, even if you play it perfectly about 10% of the time. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. You may have played the hand perfectly, but you just didn't win that time. Flip forward. I also like this little study they did, the fact that they gave a bunch of little kids crayons, and they gave one test group no reward whatsoever for coloring, for playing. They gave another group, a set of rewards for every drawing you make. We're going to give you a piece of candy, some kind of reward. Guess which group actually produced more pictures? The one without a reward, because they were doing it for intrinsic reasons. Reward. So again, this is kind of restating what I was saying. If you're focused on the results, you're thinking about your outcome. You tend to get very tense at the starting line as you're training. You have less fun with it because all you're thinking about is, I need to beat this person. I need to be the best. I need to beat my last personal record. If you're actually focusing on the execution, you're thinking about, what do I need to do to achieve that result? What am I doing in this moment to make that happen? Look forward. So, I used to have a lot of these thoughts myself. I've had them, and I think most athletes have. And I had times where all I was thinking about was making the team, about winning the race, and getting stressed out that I happened to be behind at the moment. And what would happen? I would get tense. I would try to work harder, and I would end up in rowing, we call it going backwards. Now the right mindset was sitting at the starting line and not thinking, I have to beat this person next to me. It's, okay, is my body in the right position? Is my back up? Is my arm out? Are my feet flat against the foot stretchers? Is my blade in the right position? Is my blade going down to the water quickly enough? The actual thoughts that relate directly to the process of executing on your sport. Look forward. Focusing too much on the results leads to what we call performance anxiety. It's the thoughts going through your head. It is telling yourself, you suck. I've had that thought a lot. Thinking too much about what happens if you don't perform well. Getting caught up in things you did wrong last week, last year, and I was actually talking to somebody today. There was a reporter that wanted to, for my business school, that wanted to talk to people that compete in the Olympics, and I said, I use sports psychology all the time at work. I'm in sales. If I go to a client, if I have a bad sales call, if I have a series of those and I start telling myself I suck, guess what's going to happen? My clients are going to pick up on that. They're going to pick up on the negative energy. So I try to go back to this stuff and kind of reorient myself. like this quote a lot. The single most important variable appears to be the subject's interpretation of the stress-producing stimuli. You show up at a race, it happens to be raining that day, you think, I suck in the rain, this is awful, I'm going to lose. Guess what's going to happen? You're not going to perform well. Flip forward. I really like this little trick that the sports psychologist taught me. Simplest thing in the world. I was a rower, and he said, okay, Mike, I want you to think of an animal that you relate to as a rower. Okay, well, I kind of like the gazelle. You know, the gazelle is pretty graceful. It runs at high speeds. I may not have been the most graceful rower, but I tried to be. Keeps its speed for a long period of time. You know, it seems to have a lot of ease, a lot of grace as it's moving. You know, I really try to emulate that. I said, okay, I want you to think like a gazelle when you're competing. You think if a gazelle sees a cheetah, what do you think it's going to do? Do you think it's going to stop and think, oh man, if I don't get away from this cheetah, it's going to suck. It's going to hurt. I'm going to get eaten. No, the cheetah just freaking runs. Things like, the gazelle just runs. You know, puts its hoofs down, starts galloping away. Kind of moves you into the fight, flight, or freeze. You get these nerves. What do you do with them? You flip forward. You don't want to freeze. This is what happens if you freeze. Flip forward. And so when that happens, and it happens to everybody. And I was talking to one of my colleagues who's new to sales at work, this last week, and I was saying, for me, same way when I was training, by the end of my, early on in my career, I couldn't get out of these slumps. It was really hard. And towards the end, I was actually, I was old, but I was able to pull myself out of slumps. And, I was telling him it's kind of like a constant redirecting of my energy and my focus. So I like these three. You recognize when something's not right, when you're tense, when something's not going in the direction that you want. You accept it. Okay, it's raining today, I suck in the rain. You try to regroup. You try to say, okay, I'm not going to get too caught up in this. I'm not going to let this affect me. What can I do about this? And refocus by trying to get your energy back towards the process-oriented thoughts, as opposed to the outcome-oriented thoughts. Forward. I like these. When something like that comes up, there's some things you can control, some things you can't. It's really easy for me when I was racing to think, oh man, it's windy today, I suck in the wind, I'm going to lose. Nothing I can do about that. Okay, the things that I can do would be things like making adjustments to my stroke to account for the wind. Trying to, I could, change something on my rig. So that's a little technical to account for that. So I like this, try to be proactive, about things that you can't control. Try to be decisive, when you do have control. Make that decision quickly. Don't sit there and waffle and think about the consequences of, am I going to get this right? Am I going to make this adjustment right? And then you got to be flexible. If I got caught up in that moment and stressed out, thinking I'm going to lose, this is going to suck, I'm horrible in these conditions, not going to turn out well. I'm doing it on time. Okay, keep going. Oh, wrap it up. All right. So there's a cowbell coming.
Yeah, but I don't know where it's at yet.
Next to my next slide, I'll see if I can wrap it up.
No, give us like 30 seconds to just, no slides, just.
So to shake off negative self-talk in this situation, these are the types of things you can do. You can read them, you can remember them. I think the biggest evolution of myself as an athlete was when I started accepting that I was vulnerable to these types of things. I like to think I was invincible, but that there were things I could do like this to help myself. And it's something I've carried into the rest of my life. Sorry, I missed the bell.
Every once in a while.
All right.
Is there any way to turn off those lights?
They were off.
Because the people on Facebook can't see the slides at all.
Sorry, Mr. Bella. Do you want to be a
No, you're good. You're good.
One or two questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm asking. Does anybody know how to turn off these lights and get them off? Yeah, it's hot spot. They can't see anything on the slides.
Guys, if you have questions about the presentation, now's the time.
Mike, can you just intro? I don't know if you said at the beginning, but I'm not sure if you heard me that you were actually an Olympic role and being weird.
So So I competed. I competed on the national team for about 10 years. U.S. rowing national team from about 1998 to 2008. I competed at the. I was an alternate in the Athens Olympics in 2004 and competed in the Beijing Olympics in 2008.
We'll send around the slides, and if you just follow those things exactly, you'll get them. Super easy. One more big round of applause for Mike. All right, next up we have Lillian. Lillian, what's your last name these days?
Lauer.
That guy.
That's my last
They both start with an L.
name.
Should I stand on this stool? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take this in a totally different direction. And it's going to be like 5.5 minutes. So most of you already know me, but I'm Lillian, Mama Lil, whatever you want to call me. 3 years ago today, I showed up at Kezar Stadium for my first November Project workout. Or maybe next week, but it was one or the other. Tonight's event felt like the perfect opportunity to reflect on why I joined MP and how running has changed my life. I'll try to speak louder. Some of you remember when I was the recipient of the Positivity Award. And we were still working out at Alamo Square. What you might not know is that only 1 year prior to that, I had hit an all-time low and I was anything but positive. Let me explain some backstory of 5 years and 5 minutes. Flashback to July 2011, I finished my first ever full marathon, the SF Marathon. I ran it in 3 hours and 42 minutes. I've never felt more accomplished. Seeing months of training pay off, feeling grateful for my body's strength, greeting my family at the finish line, and my boyfriend at the time. It was the best feeling in the world. And after the race, I decided I'm going to take some time off from running to recover. Felt like the right thing to do after a marathon. I didn't think I needed running in my life. I'd never really known life without it since I started in middle school. My middle school class, I ran through high school, I ran in college, I ran after college. I never not run. But I took some time off, and days turned into weeks, turned into months of not running. I had all the excuses in the book. I was working 50 hours a week at the office. I was so stressed. I was getting to know a new city. I just moved here from Boston. I was partying hard on the weekends, partying really hard on the weekends. I know you wouldn't believe it. After the race, months turned into a year of not running. And on the outside, I was happy with my newfound adventures, my love life. I started to feel a shift on the inside. My self-esteem suffered. Stress from work hit me harder than ever. I found myself in tears on the daily. Now the only thing that makes me cry is when my favorite person wins on America's Got Talent. Seriously. I But ultimately, I hit rock bottom. I found myself at the doctor's office looking for help, and I was given a prescription of Prozac. 1 in 4 Americans are affected by depression, and yes, sometimes these drugs can be life-saving, but it didn't feel like the right answer for me. I wanted to understand the root cause, not just treat the symptoms. And then I had a thought. Running always made me happy. Why don't I just try that? Maybe if I could move my body, I could move my mind. So one night, after work, despite feeling totally exhausted and defeated, I went out for my first run. It was only 2 miles around the neighborhood in the pitch dark. I felt out of shape and disappointed that I couldn't do more than that. But I gave myself a mantra that you don't have to see the entire path, just take 1 step. And for me, this was the first one towards recovery. Flash forward to today, I have found purpose in my pain. It taught me compassion for others. It made me infinitely grateful for my health and for those who loved me and stood by me through the darkest days. I am happier than I ever have felt, and I work hard to stay that way. I surround myself with positive people, positive affirmations, loving friendships, and a supportive community like you. I eat whole foods, I exercise regularly, I do my yoga. It turns out that, yeah, I was in the wrong job and the wrong industry, and getting fired was a blessing in disguise to help me grow as a person. So how did running save me? Running forced me to breathe again when I held my breath for a year. Running empowered me to be my best, healthiest self. Healthy bodies are happy bodies. Now I'm gluten-free. That's a whole nother way that my life got saved. But I did find out that there is a link between exercise and diet and depression and anxiety that I had no idea about. Running makes me feel accomplished. Even just a 5-mile run in my Nike app feels like a win, even on my most defeated days. It makes me feel stronger and fit, and strong makes me feel confident. Running forces me to use all my senses. I can see the beauty of the Bay Area, I can breathe fresh air, I can touch the earth with my own 2 feet, I can taste my sweat, I can hear the badass playlist blaring through my headphones. And therefore, running makes me feel alive. Running helped me start moving down the path to recovery, but I needed accountability. It's still hard to get myself out there those first few weeks. And then I heard about the Rever Project through Facebook from Goldie, who's Rogan's wife, because she used to be my yoga teacher in Boston. And this couldn't have come at a better time. I found out that NP was coming to SF. And I was drawn to the values of NP. And to this day, this is what I show up for, the values. I've always been a runner, and I can run on my own, so why run with NP? Now I have a community to share these values with. When I lacked motivation and self-discipline to take care of myself, NP kept me accountable to show up by making me verbal. I didn't want to let anyone down, especially not Mark Nowitzki. NP created an environment of positivity and reminded me that negativity was never the norm and that I was loved and accepted. NP was inclusive when I had previously been left out. NP showed me how to succeed just by showing up and showing me support with cheers of "great job" when I had previously felt like a failure. Last page, Daddy. The Rever Project showed me acceptance to come as I am when I had previously been rejected. So running may have helped me survive, but November Project helps me thrive. I share my story today to remind you that if you've ever had a bad day, a bad week, a bad year, that you're not alone. Depression can be isolating, but suicide is never the answer.
Lillian who comes up in between. Lillian, thank you so much for sharing that story. That was amazing. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to do this is because there are so many stories like that, and there's so many stories in this group, and it's really easy to not share those and not hear those, even at November Project in the short period of time where you're working out with strangers in the morning. But I think it's important to hear those stories and to know that the person that you're hugging in the morning might be going through something difficult, and it helps just that you're there. So thank you, all of you, for being part of the community. Thank you, Lillian, for sharing that awesome story. One more round of applause. All right, and this next presenter will be the last one before beer, which is great. This individual put in 2 different submissions. The first one was a very technical. No, we're not going there yet. Where are we going?
I didn't think I put in 2 submissions.
No. Oh, sorry. I'm out of order. I'm out of order. What next, Alex? All right.
Instead of doing kind of a mix of stories and some more educational stuff, it's going pretty well.
Hopefully it's educational. This is my one and only submission. Our high energy planet. So I'm going to talk about global energy consumption. I think it's an incredibly important and incredibly complicated subject that I've happily devoted my career to. Very complicated. To make it short, I'm going to rely on some approximations, some simplifications, but hopefully not any outright dishonesty. Next slide, please. This is a light bulb, 100-watt light bulb, burning 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, burns about 3 million BTUs of energy. Next slide, please. This is the Earth, burns about 500 quadrillion BTUs of energy. It's such a big number that we in the energy wonk industry come up with a new term for it. We call it 500 quads. The Earth is a 500 quad planet. We are already, as the subject of my talk is, a high energy planet. Next slide, please. We're also actually a very energy unequal planet. So even though we especially in the rich world, in places like California, we consider all our energy needs met, many of our neighbors around the world do not have access to energy, the energy that they need for their livelihoods, for their comfort, for their prosperity. So 1.5 billion people around the world, a little less than a quarter of the planet, has zero access to electricity in their lives. 3 billion people rely primarily on wood and dung and other biomass for their energy. So what I'm going to talk about here today is the reasons why that 500 quadrillion number is going up. And the first reason is that a huge portion, almost half the planet, almost half of our neighbors, still consume far too little energy. And we think, in the West especially, of energy consumption very often as wasteful, or as unnecessary, or as environmentally unsustainable. And that's true in many ways, but the subject of my talk, as brief as I'll be, is about why energy consumption is going up, and that's mostly a good thing. And the first reason it's a good thing is that many of our neighbors don't have nearly enough modern energy that we have for our daily comfort, for our jobs, for our transportation, for our healthcare, for our industrial productivity, and all the things that we benefit from. So I'm going to talk about 3 reasons why energy consumption is going up and why that's mostly a good thing. And the first one is simply energy poverty and energy equality, energy for human growth and development. Next slide, please. And you might say, well, yeah, we consume a lot of energy, it's going up, but can't we be more efficient with our energy? And the answer is absolutely yes, we can be more efficient, particularly in the rich world, where we can use better appliances, we can use better systems, we can use better processes and better pricing systems and things like that. But one sort of interesting way that I learned to think differently about energy in my time studying it was realizing that energy efficiency over decades and centuries is actually one of the things that allows us to consume more energy. And I'll try and illustrate that with some numbers. This CFL, or a cartoon of a CFL, very modern, efficient light bulb. So the energy efficiency, the thermodynamic efficiency of lighting, has improved by about a factor of 10,000 in the last 200 years, as we move from like wood and candles and whale oil to modern light bulbs. So yeah, we've dramatically improved our efficiency by a factor of 10,000. We consume about 40,000 times more light as we've gotten more efficient, it's gotten cheaper. We do more things with it. We don't just light our homes. We started lighting our streets. We started lighting all of our buildings. We started lighting skyscrapers. We started lighting bridges and tunnels. We started lighting iPads and iPods and everything. So while we have gotten more efficient, that ultimately gives us new uses and makes energy cheaper. And this is ultimately a good thing, I would say. I think we enjoy the ways that we light our cities and we use other forms of energy. It's called the efficiency rebound effect. It's a technical term. There are a lot of ways that, especially in the rich world, we can use a lot less energy. If we double the efficiency of our cars, we're not going to drive twice as more. If we double the efficiency of our lighting, for the most part at this point, we're not going to light things up twice as much. We're starting to reach the saturation of this effect. But there are some big things around the world where we might expect efficiency to drive further increases in energy consumption. Steel and cement production around the world can still be tremendously improved in their efficiency. Things like new things, like data storage, could become tremendously more efficient. And that's the second reason, this sort of complication around efficiency that I think we'll continue to see energy get cheaper, get more efficient, get more useful, and we'll find more and more things to do with it. Next slide, please. This is sort of my favorite reason. So this is a political cartoon from 1861 in Vanity Fair. This is the whales of the world gathering at a very, very elegant gala to celebrate the discovery of petroleum oil in Titusville. So the idea here is now that humans have discovered oil in the ground, we don't have to hunt whales for their oil, and the whales are very happy about that. So this is another way that despite what we hear about our energy consumption and our profligate energy consumption, modern energy and synthetic energy has actually allowed us to save a whole bunch of other resources. Modern oil in the 19th century allowed us to save the whales. The switch from wood to coal in Germany, in the United States, and in the United Kingdom actually allowed our forests to grow back. There's more trees in Germany, the United Kingdom, and the United States than there were 100 or 150 years ago. And we're starting to see ways that this energy saving other resources might continue to happen in things like desalination. You spend a lot more energy desalinating water than you do collecting it from a river or an aquifer, but you might save those rivers and aquifers. Things like indoor agriculture, where if you can spend a little bit more energy or electricity to grow food inside, you save a lot of land, you can save a lot of water, you can save a lot of other resources. So I love this cartoon. I think it's an illustration of a really important and misunderstood or underunderstood thing about energy consumption. And it has, I think, a whole bunch of applications and lessons for how we can continue to think about energy. Next slide, please. So, two words I haven't said yet are climate change. Sure, energy has all these good effects. Saves other resources. We can live modern lives. We have iPads. But are we causing climate change with all our energy? Are we spewing carbon into the atmosphere and warming the planet? The answer is yes. Don't believe people will tell you differently. But I will talk a little bit about why climate change is both a challenge and an opportunity. Next slide, please. So if you pay any attention, you may have noticed that we are actually seeing dramatic improvements in our clean energy technologies. Things like solar, things like wind turbines, things like storage for homes and for the electric grid, things like advanced nuclear power. We're living through a modern energy revolution and a whole bunch of different technologies that hopefully will be able to do all of those big things, like give people modern energy for modern lives, like save other resources for things like desalination. And hopefully we'll be able to do that soon without the carbon emissions. Next slide.
Any questions?
I answered everything, right? Sorry? I run communications for an environmental think tank in Oakland called the Breakthrough Institute. That none of that information is on here.
Thanks for letting PSF.
Yeah, the important shit is on here. I was an energy analyst there for 4 years after college, and I just made the jump into running communications for them. So hopefully I'm communicating well.
Where's the hashtag PSF eSpay?
I didn't want to get divisive or anything. Hashtag eSpay.